Ladies, gentlemen, and friends beyond the binary, welcome to Step Back Tonight. Hello, 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 all of you wonderful people out there in internet land. Just getting my control panels up and running. Hi, I'm Tristan from YouTube channel Step Back History, and Tristan won't shut up. If this is your first time here and you don't know that. Also, thank you to Read the Mead for giving a nice Twitch subscription right before the stream started, so thank you. I want to make sure you didn't get missed. Hello. I am Tristan. Tristan won't shut up. Step Back History. I stream 3 days a week on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Fridays. On Mondays, I stream from noon till 2 with me and Mulder. On Tuesdays, I typically stream alone from 7 to 9, but obviously with Step Back Tonight. But obviously, I have a wonderful special surprise for everybody that Thought Slime himself is going to be dropping by to hang out with us. And on Fridays, I do the Reactor, where people send me content via the Discord server, and I react to it. That goes from 12 to 2. It's pretty fun. I go by he, him pronouns, and you can find my work at stepbackhistory.com or tristanwon'tshutup.com. And if you want to support my work, you can either go to patreon.com/stepbackhistory and pledge for as little as $1 a month, or I guess now with an annual membership, it's as little as 84 cents a month. And on Twitch, you can give a free subscription if you have a Amazon Prime account. No extra cost to you. They get to keep your money if you don't use it. So if you use it on Step Back, I'd be very grateful. Obviously, I would like you to use it on any Twitch creator. So please just make sure that you're using it. As far as where we are in the content stream right now, I've been a little delayed because of all of the issues with my teeth that have been happening in the last week. But I managed to play through the pain today, and I recorded 2 videos. So, yeah. So 2 videos are in the can as of today, and I'll be editing tomorrow. So hopefully you'll be getting something pretty soon. Which is like, it's the longest I've gone between making videos in quite a while. So I'm very happy for that. And I'm going to put a thing in the chat. That's going to be a link to a place where you can submit questions for either this or future streams. It's fairly likely I only have like a handful of questions for tonight, so if you submit questions for Step Back Tonight, then I can I might be able to cover them tonight, depending upon how things go. And also because Matt is a very popular person. There's a lot of new faces here, so if this is your first time here, please make yourself known. Say hello. We've got quite a great chat community going on, so please join on in. And with all of that out of the way, let's get the thinking slime in here. Let me just where is my thingy? Here we are.
Oh.
Hello.
I'm very low. Hello, it's me.
I've heard of you. 1 second. I'm just going to... I have... The crop is set up for Mia Mulder's camera, so I gotta, like, crop it because you're more in the center.
Oh, wow.
And hey, you just subscribed.
Oh, boy, how embarrassing. Did I do that on stream? Oops.
Alrighty. Well, we have a huge overlap in our audiences, so I imagine there's not that many people in the chat who don't know who you are, but we should open by letting those who don't know who you are know who you are. That was
my name's Thought Slime. My whole thing is I'm trying to drag the working class down into the slime and the muck, and just kind of make everyone as miserable as I am. I'm part of the synthetic left, and I obviously don't respect the working class because of the way I said Burger King one time.
Oh boy. Oh, and thank you, Blaze
That's my
Shark
deal.
5426 for the subscription. Well, you are a comedy interneter. You make content that is funny and about politicking. But then also,
That's one way to put it.
you deprogram. You like have done videos about like the threats of rising fascist movements. You've done videos on conspiracy theorists, and like you've done a lot of good work. And you either recently or are very close to hitting 200,000 subscribers. Congratulations!
Last night, baby.
Yeah, good stuff. So, you are a rock star now. You are followed by Robert Evans.
Hey now. True, yeah.
Which is a premium Step Back history.
Didn't get mentioned on Behind the Bastards like Lily Simpson did. That's a life goal.
That's the next step. And then to be a guest.
Yeah. And I should be clear that to get mentioned on Behind the Bastards, not as the subject of an episode.
Yeah.
Then something has gone terribly wrong.
If everybody's audio is good, I think we're good. Is that Caleb Mopen? Oh, man. Is your brand just making fun of Caleb Mopen now?
Yes. I thought for a second you meant that he was in chat, and I was very excited.
No. He does seem like the name-searching type, but but how you been doing? How's interneting?
Oh, you know, it's been all right. I'm eager to get out of quarantine.
Me too. The United States, we're at the point now where I'm gonna hate this. We're gonna have a point this summer because it just got announced that like what. Nobody who's not a boomer is going to get a vaccine until, like, the fall now.
Well, I'll be getting mine in July, but okay.
How'd you get yours in July?
Because I'm 35 years old.
I thought that
and
they were...
In July, I'll be 36 years old.
Did they change the timeline?
No, it's the last timeline I saw.
Oh, the last timeline I saw was talking about people under or 60 and over getting it in July, and I was like, "Oh dear."
I think you might have misread, or I misread. Let me double check.
Yeah, because like there was what was the thing? I was making some gag about how Americans are going to be like by the fall. Americans are going to be butt chugging White Claws with all their friends, and I'll have to butt chug White Claws at home alone.
I mean, we could do like a virtual hangout and butt chug White Claws together.
Yep. That at the regular cabal meetings, but we're not supposed to talk about those.
Yeah.
Someone asked how we met, and you reached out to me. That was how it met. You wanted
Yeah. I had been listening to your now defunct podcast, YouTubers United, and then somehow discovered, well, I say somehow discovered, at the time I had so few subscribers that I literally knew who they all were. So I was like, this guy subscribed to me.
Yeah.
So my lovely wife encouraged me to reach out to you.
Yeah, and it was good. And it's been the same ever since.
Mm-hmm.
Especially because it was actually very soon after I had moved to Toronto, so I was like, I would like new people in my life who also do my job.
And as I recall, we went to a Buffalo Wild Wings.
Did we? I thought we went to it was a coffee shop, and then there was that British pub where we got shit-faced. That was fun.
Yeah, that was the second hang. The first hang, we went to that coffee shop and then wanted to get a drink, and we couldn't find anywhere, so we went to a Buffalo Wild Wings and each had one domestic beer.
Ah, yes. Man, memory's starting to go. Did Canada have a post-World War II baby boom? Oh, yes. Yeah, we got boomers.
Still going on, baby.
All right. So typically the way that this stream goes is I ramble about things, usually about capitalism and it's being bad or something. And then I've had people submit questions, and typically these things get me started or get us started on stuff. We'll see. We'll see these questions go, because sometimes they're weird. Because it's been like after years of streaming, we have a lot of regulars, and like questions are just like follow-ups to questions that have been going on for months and stuff. So it'll be real fun. But let's start with some of the stuff we got sitting around. Okay, so one of the things that comes up is the legal podcast response zone, because one very active person in the audience wants me to react to every episode of every podcast and every YouTube video that he sees. And so he comes to me with like the legal podcast. I always forget its name, but they're basically just a bunch of liberal lawyers who say liberal talking points.
Okay. Sounds great.
Yeah. So apparently they said that Biden. So the big thing. Okay. So there's the thing with the parliamentarian, right? That's the word of the day.
Yes, I've heard of this person.
Yeah, not exactly.
What is this?
This I'm actually not.
America doesn't have a parliament.
No, but I think that the parliamentarian rule, I think, is one of these things that they can do to override anything that's a veto. It's basically like what the Republicans do when they want to smash through legislation and they don't control the Senate. So I think the parliamentarian is like a way where it's like they can get around not having 60 votes for breaking a filibuster, which is is one of the dumbest things in American politics, which is that if they have a set amount of time that they can discuss a thing, and if they run out of time, they can't vote. So if you just say, I would like to speak about this one more time, and then don't stop talking, then they can't have the vote. And you can delay the vote or stop the vote depending upon things. So, opening arguments is the name of the podcast. Okay. Well, so people are thinking of invoking this because, you know, the control of the Democrats in the Senate is razor thin. It's literally like 51-49 right now. Or no, it's 50-50, and then the vice president can come in and vote on a tie. That's it.
So what's the question?
So so basically the parliamentarian made a judgment that they can't do the $15 minimum wage bill because they can't get Joe Manchin to do it, who is the Republican Democrat. He's the Democrat that is really right wing, and so he always like fucks up everything. Because West Virginia or something, I don't know. Anyways, so if he ignored the parliamentarian and left the $15 minimum wage in the relief bill, it would have made it incredibly easy for conservatives to challenge the entire relief bill in court. Suppose that's true. Should he have left it in anyway? And so basically it was like, why pass it if the Supreme Court's going to shut it down?
Well, I mean, this is, I think, the liberal mentality summed up, which is, if we don't preemptively capitulate to our opponents, then they'll just defeat us.
Yeah. And on top, yeah, because, like, you know, when things are going on in the Supreme Court, like, the Supreme Court can surprise you. It can. And also, like, I can't... Despite like how conservative Supreme Court is, I feel like it would be a tough sell to say that raising the minimum wage violates the Constitution. And that shit can take years to work its way up. And then those conservative Supreme Court justices would have to be like, no, we're going to take away your money now because
Well, and I think it's also like it's the wrong question to ask, in my view, because it's like in this incredibly specific scenario where we can't get this thing done, should we do the this other thing as a symbolic gesture? But you shouldn't be in this situation in the first place. Your party shouldn't be at a point where like one person can withhold this, like withhold their vote and like make it such a clusterfuck in the first place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the U.S. Yeah, I mean, it's not exactly out of line to say that the U.S. Congress is a very broken system that nobody can make heads or tails of. God damn it. Oh, okay. So they're saying that the courts could block the bill pending court review or something. Either way, it's, yeah, as you said, like the fact that they've kind of fucked the football so hard that they've gotten themselves into a position where conservatives control so many things that they, even when they control government, they can't do stuff. And it's like, I got to be more anarchisty when you're around because I have to stop thinking about the government systems. It's just like, fuck it.
Well, like it's like a perfect illustration of like how electoral politics is kind of a trap, because like if you don't like if you're not constantly on your guard keeping like the very worst ghouls out of power, then they'll just make everything worse. But if you vote for the lesser of two evils, there's nothing they can do to make anything better, just to like hopefully delay things getting worse. And even then, they're sometimes not interested in doing that.
Yep. And that the timeline on these things, even during like, you know, emergency situations, can be years. And it's just like, oh yeah, like don't worry about it. We're like making gains with like some like left-leaning politicians now. And so sometime like 10 years from now, when you're already like dead from no money, then we'll finally fix a small thing. And it's like, okay.
Yeah, this fun game of that if we advocate for this position, you become unelectable. So what we have to do is convince a career politician to advocate for this position that will make them unelectable, rather than like support someone who already supports it.
Mm-hmm. America is the best system. It's the best. Solid. Everything makes sense.
Everything makes sense, and I would say that the government is very functional.
Yeah, if there's one thing I know about America, it's how much stuff gets done.
You remember when I think it was the first time Trump bombed somebody, and on CNN that guy said, "This is the day he truly became our president," and everybody was like, "Boy, CNN, that's a real fucked up thing to say." And then Joe Biden became president, and he bombed Syria, and all of the same people are like, "Very good. What a sensible bomb strike." Isn't it great how he can bomb people without swearing?
I need to stop looking at the news. There's like no like. Oh. We were talking about this yesterday with Mia. It was just like, if there's one thing that a historian can learn, is that nobody ever learns anything, and we just make the same mistakes over and over again. But it does show that, yeah, like to a lot of people, like a lot of people, the problem with Trump was nothing that he did. It was purely his aesthetic.
His tone, yeah.
He was just bad toned boy.
Which, again, is like, conversely, also the thing that conservatives like about him.
Yeah.
Like that's why liberals continue to lose to him. Or I guess they didn't this time, but only because he bungled COVID-19 so badly. Is that they think that like him acting kind of coarse is what makes him unlikable, and that's actually like his greatest appeal.
Yeah, there's actually there was a study of conservatives that or like basically like the way that conservatives and liberals conceive of their politics and conceive of like their relationships, and that conservatives, one of the number one things that actually motivates them is joy at the pain that they will cause other people. Like there's actually like if they find out like if option A and option B are exactly the same, but option B will make liberals angry, they will go with that one. And it's like, oh, okay. Thanks. I mean, it says a lot about like how people come to these kinds of positions and such, but it's weird in the United States because like the difference between, if anything, the difference between the parties are also pretty aesthetic at this point too. So it's literally just whether or not you're proud to be a jerk. Which, like, geez.
With some, like, minor, hey, we won't stone queer people in the streets if you vote for one party.
Yes. Yeah, there is that. And I was just listening to a whole long thing about a talk about there's a podcast called Bad Faith, which is hosted by the former communications director of the Bernie Sanders campaign. And it was a panel, an all-black panel talking about sort of issues with the Bernie Sanders campaign with the black community and discussions of class and identity and stuff like that. And they were very tired of like that sort of stuff being cynically like racial justice being cynically weaponized to push for things that would make a lot of people, especially people of color, disproportionately worse off. Things like not raising the minimum wage, which, you can imagine people of color disproportionately make up minimum wage workers, and things like healthcare, everything, all the way down. I hate it. I hate it so much. Okay. Next up we got... Okay, this is interesting. The bad guy in a sci-fi novel I'm reading is a politician very obviously based on Trump. When we're introduced to him, we're told he's not, quote, conventionally intelligent, but he is masterful at getting other people to do what he wants. Do you think people overestimate how charismatic and persuasive Trump is? Like, I tend to think the American right, was just ready for an authoritarian and strongman, and Trump was in the right place and time to be slotted into that role.
Was that last part you editorializing, or was that in the question?
That was in the question.
What do you think?
This is like one of the harder questions, because like I do think that Trump, he's not very well versed in like things that politicians are usually versed in, like issues, politics, anything really.
I think, yeah.
But he definitely is smart at he understands media. He understands how media works in a way that a lot of people don't. And he has he knows that, like, a lot of politicians like to pretend that this is real and serious and important. And he knows that it's all just like bread and circuses. And so that gives him an edge because he knows how he doesn't play the sort of pageantry. And to see through that in a position of power like that, I mean, like, I don't know if everyone could do it, but when it comes to like the intelligence that you would want for somebody to be able to fire a nuclear weapon in a few minutes, not super well versed in those.
Yeah, I mean, there's also too high in intelligence, and I think they would just do it immediately. Like if you gave like a super powerful computer the ability to do it, they would just, take one look at Twitter and be like, okay, time to nuke the planet. But I think that with Trump, people tend to view him as this like master manipulator, like this 10-dimensional chess player. I I think he gets manipulated more than he does manipulating. Like, he just does whatever Sean Hannity and Tucker Carlson say, basically. You just have to show him something on TV. And like where he excels is he is an incredibly good communicator. Because partially because he has such a limited vocabulary that he uses very simple words and very like action oriented words that like really make all of his ideas stick in your head in a way that so few politicians can replicate because they're like Ivy League educated, fancy lads. So the average person hears them and realizes how fake and pompous they sound. Whereas with Trump, he's like, he's like Homer Simpson. All he does is watch TV and eat fast food. Like he is, and I don't say this as a compliment. I mean this as a damning indictment of the American people. He is a man of the people.
Yeah. Yeah, I think like if there is any like skill that he has above like the baseline of skills, it's just that he understands what journalists want. Like he understands, and like I know people, like I worked for somebody who used to be the Attorney General of Ontario, and so like I know like the people who know this kind of stuff, and he just knows that like if you do something dramatic, even if it's something evil, that politicians, like if you can make it so that covering you is good business, then they will be compulsively obsessed with covering you, and they can't not cover you.
But I think even that gives him a little too much credit. I think that he is not thinking about it beyond like his immediate audience. What he likes to do, and the entire reason he's in politics, is to go to rallies and give speeches and let people clap and hoot and holler for him. And he knows what gets a reaction from them. And that is the same thing that gets a reaction out of the media.
Yeah, fair.
That's my theory anyway. It's that like the fact that what he's doing gets a huge reaction out of the media is largely a coincidence. He's doing it because he wants to be like a wrestling promoter, essentially.
Yeah. And so at this point, he walked into a conservative movement that's increasingly getting more authoritarian and anti-intellectual and like all these things. And also, I think just the fact that he was so rich. The thing is, like, a lot of times rich people learn things when they're young about like how to like decorum and like things like that. And so he just like walked into this pageant that was just full of like rituals and artifice and norms, and was just like, yeah, I don't give a shit about any of those. And it turns out that like that entire system falls apart if someone just doesn't care about it. And so in many ways, like what seemed like genius was just like an elephant resting, like deciding to lean on a house of cards that everyone had been meticulously building and maintaining.
Yeah, and I think the Republican Party immediately understood that. Like they saw the writing on the wall once he became a candidate in 2016. Whereas I think the Democrats still haven't gotten the message. They're still trying to play the respectable elder statesman role.
Because they think that'll work, because it works with their version of those people that they are trying to appease, which are people who are on MSNBC telling them what to do. Yeah. April, by the way, thank you for the super chat, saying keeping it slimy, y'all. Keep it slimy, y'all. Thank you. Okay, let's see. What's the collective name for people who think the 2020 election was rigged? Just now I was writing something, I didn't know what to call them. Election truthers, maybe? I don't know if we've congealed on a name yet in the popular consciousness.
Yeah. It's just that new dumb shit comes out at such a rate that it's hard to give names to everything.
Yeah, back in the day, like your pet conspiracy theory was like part of your identity, and like you would like be built upon it. Like, there was like when we were growing up, like there was the guys who were just, it was always guys who were like really into like JFK stuff, like really into that Oliver Stone stuff. And then,
or the moon landing.
and like they just like if you were a moon landing guy, that was your whole thing. Like you didn't, but now they've all, like in the 90s, you kind of went into the sort of uber, like over conspiracies, like New World Order stuff. And yeah.
And Roswell. Mm-hmm. It's as, I forget the name of him. It was the guy who was, he's the guy responsible for repopularizing the protocols of the learned elders of Zion, even though he himself was not an anti-Semite. He just said like, oh, if you replace Jews with, New World Order or globalists or whatever, that this totally makes sense. But he's quoted on a bunch of Wu-Tang albums for some reason. He made the switch. He brought in like the UFO New Age conspiracy crowd into the fold by then like disavowing that, building up a big following of UFO people, disavowing that and saying, no, it's all the New World Order. The UFO shit is a smokescreen. And that, I think, led to like the conspiracy culture we have today, where it's like layers upon layers of, all of these conspiracies intermingle. And even when they contradict one another, it's all part of some larger conspiracy.
Yeah, I'm. These things are on my mind because I'm thinking of doing a thing where, on September 17th, which is the anniversary of the First Step Back video, I was going to go back to one of my old videos and remake it. And my first video was, why are conspiracy theories so American? And now I'm like gonna have to return to like, what is it about American culture that causes conspiracies to run rampant?
Bill Cooper is his name.
Bill Cooper? Alrighty. Somebody also asked how your Minecraft server's doing.
When it's up, it's doing fine. I haven't visited it in a couple of months. It was originally a Christmas present for my subscribers, and then it ended up being so much more popular than I assumed it would be. So I've just kept it up.
Is it still active?
It's still pretty active. Let me see how many people are on it right now. I can do this in real time. I'm an admin, you see.
And then somebody asked the big question, which is, have you ever confronted me about the dream slurs?
Yeah, so are we going to get into this? We're going to get into this?
I suppose we have to.
No one is online at the moment. Yes. So I'll tell the story and then Tristan can defend himself.
Okay.
But basically, I had a dream where it was Christmas and we were in a movie theater that a friend of mine had rented out doing a treasure hunt. And I was running around trying to find the treasures when it turns out the whole thing was a setup and Tristan pushed me down the stairs. And I tumbled over all the seats, tumbling over people. And I fell to the ground in front of the screen. He came down and he was laughing at me. And I said, I don't think that's funny because you could have hurt me and you could have hurt the people in the seats. And Tristan called me a very rude word, a slur for gay men that starts with the letter F that I will not repeat because, yeah. So I guess I'm wondering, Tristan, what were you thinking when you did that in my dream?
Well, I imagine we were asleep at around the same time, so I probably wasn't thinking a whole lot. But damn. Okay. To dig into, first of all, I denounce and reject whoever this imposter is. I would never do such a thing. I have never made a mistake in my life. So this is obviously some imposter.
Disappointing.
But now I want to like pull out a cigar and break this down. What is it about? What do I represent in this archetype, and I could.
Oh yeah, and I forgot to mention you were nailing my mom at the time.
Oh no! Well, problem solved. Obviously, I have someone's getting dream canceled. Oh boy. I think all I can say is that it was probably my non-union counterpart because I don't work nights.
I see.
This is my Stefan.
I'm getting canceled for having non-union dream actors.
There we go. I win. There you go. Counter canceled. Done.
Yeah, Tristan was on strike, so technically it was a scab.
Oh no. Oh man. Well, I'm glad we resolved that. We have made world peace. Now you are the bad because you're a dream capitalist or whatever. And I have an IWW t-shirt now, so it makes it even worse.
How did you get an IWW t-shirt?
I bought it off of the IWW's website.
Makes sense.
I was just like, I don't know.
That makes...
I had moved and I was like, you know what I want? I don't have an IWW t-shirt. How can I get one of those? And it turns out just the IWW sells them. And so I was like, okay. Not the most compelling story, but I was just the other day, I was like, wait a minute. I'm almost making minimum wage. Maybe I can actually maybe I can buy things occasionally. And that's been life-changing.
Yeah. This is why I always say buying stuff rules.
It's true.
This is why we're capitalists.
And I do a video. I recorded a video today where I'm playing an undercover FBI agent where I'm wearing the IWW t-shirt with a tie.
How do you do, fellow commies?
Exactly. Oh, man. Okay, let's see what we got here. So... Okay. Oh man, I don't know if we want to roll. I don't know if we want to roll with this one. Which is more damaging for a child? Being raised by a conservative Mormon who wants Mitt Romney to run in 2024, or being raised by someone who has no religious beliefs but's an election truther who wants Trump to be president for life? Tough question.
I think easily the latter. I think.
Oh, yeah?
I think you could make a case either way, but I think that the first guy doesn't sound necessarily like a complete toxic weirdo. I don't think it does damage to children to raise them Mormon.
Okay, yeah. For some reason, I thought you were saying it the other way around, and I was like, wait, what? Yeah, not being part of a fascist conspiracy theory definitely gets you points. I mean, supporting and Mitt Romney, as far as being a conservative goes, is one of the less bad conservatives you could be. He's currently proposing policies to the left of Biden, so I don't know. He's high on my list of potential to cross the aisle type guys.
It's also I'm sure there are plenty of guys that match that first description who would be awful to live with, particularly if you're not cis het, but there are no guys that match the second description that aren't awful to live with,
Yeah. Is she having a bad time? Yeah. Sorry, I'm getting a cat deposit because there's gonna be a cat here soon. Anyways. Yeah, I don't know, just... Okay, thanks, Phoebes. All right. Can I get the name of the podcast that's super cool? Oh, talking about something else. I thought you were talking about the podcast we talked about, 30 minutes ago. I don't know, I feel So when I made my video on Mormonism, And I specifically was like, I'm going to make a video about Mormonism that's not me being a dick to Mormons, because everybody who I've ever seen on the internet try to explain what Mormonism is either wants to be a dick to Mormons or wants you to become a Mormon. And I was like, okay. But then I actually had like a long interview with an anarcho-communist Mormon family. And so it's like, okay, like Mormons they're more than what you think they are. There's obviously like a lot of fucked up shit that happens in Latter-day Saint communities. There's like definitely an issue of being insular. And if you have bad experiences with it, I'm not going to like dismiss the bad experiences you've had. But like it's a bigger religion than people make it out to be. And they have been stereotyped quite a bit. And
well, I think like any of the criticisms you could level against Mormons, you could level against any major religion.
This is true. And I also give a little bit, I give a little bit of a pass because when I was doing my master's thesis research, I learned a very important fact, which is that Mormons were one of the #1 groups out there that were like, hey, don't be dicks to Muslims during like the peak kind of scare time of the early War on Terror, because they are a group in America that has suffered a lot of religious persecution. The reason they're in the middle of nowhere in Utah is because they kept getting driven out of everywhere they went.
I think there's also, just as an aside, there's some interesting parallels between both religions. Like how they both believe that their seminal texts were dictated to the founders of their religions by an angel.
Mm-hmm.
I just find that an interesting coincidence.
That is true. I didn't think about that before. But yeah, it is. That is the idea. And also, like, the theology of Mormonism has a lot more to do with like it at least acknowledges like space exists, while like a lot of other ones don't. So someone
This comment.
Oh yeah.
Omni is a soulless Wall Street parasite. Don't let his petty words fool you. Yeah, he's a Democrat. That's what we said.
Yep. Okay. I wasn't being like pro Mitt Romney. It's just that he consistently, I feel like he's one of those people who's only in the Republican Party because his family has associations with the Republican Party, and he's from a state where the Republican Party is extremely powerful. Because, like, I don't know, the Overton, like, what's it called? The political positions of the Democratic Party have moved, like, to his right over the period of his career. And that's, and now more, I would bet that there are, if you were to do a study of his approval ratings, that more Democrats approve of Mitt Romney now than Republicans.
Yeah. Mittens is set up to be the next John McCain, I think.
Mm-hmm. By the way, Keen Croyle, thank you for the super chat. About to go back in time, however many minutes y'all have been talking. Is that history? Love both y'all's work. Thank you. Aw, thank you. Yeah, well, we've been talking for about 45 minutes, so you'll be back
history
soon.
I thought ended in the 90s.
There is that. I got so much shit for being like, you're gonna do history of the 21st century. You can't do that. It's not done yet. It's like, and then I had to be like, well, when can I start? And they were like, well, eventually. Like, I like when I was starting my thing, I was like, I'm doing this, and then the most recent Times history book that was really making the rounds at the time was like the first big historical account of the Rwandan genocide. And so it's like, okay, you can do 1994 that at the latest. And I was like, this is a very weird system of things that we have set up. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not as a historian, but things did happen after 1994, right?
I've heard rumors. Hope Kurt Cobain turns out okay.
Although if you told me that everything after 1994 was all just a dream, I think at this point I'd be like, okay, I can I can live with this.
Yeah, me too. Oh boy. Okay, there are lots of. So that was. Let's see. Let's see what we got. Oh, who else has been asking stuff? Um. Okay. And people are talking about Jordan Peterson having a new book coming out, or that's out,
I know.
and it's literally like 12 more rules for life.
Mhm.
Okay.
I mean, isn't the whole point of the original book that these are the? Like, what am I? Why am I attempting to find logic in this?
He's at 14 minutes and 59 seconds. He's got to get back into the discourse somehow. Okay. This is a good one. So is Comicsgate a fascist movement?
Yes.
So I don't know much about Comicsgate beyond it being like basically like people making quartering style whining about comics have women in them that are not sex objects, and this makes me upset type stuff. But
It's an attempt by the worst people on the internet to engineer a Gamergate, where Gamergate was uh, obviously egged on by moneyed interests, but largely something that just coalesced from the general miasma of misogyny online. This is an attempt to repeat it, to create the conditions from which a new Gamergate might emerge in comic books. Because around like I would say the mid 2010s, there's a big push for more diversity in superheroes specifically, because like most of these characters were invented in the fucking 60s and 70s, which is exactly the most diverse time in media. And they were all created by white dudes. So there's this real push to like, and I want to be clear, it wasn't done out of like the goodness of the hearts of the people, the editorial board at DC or Marvel or whatever. It was because as these movies were getting huge, big blockbuster movies, they just wanted to capture new markets. That's the only reason that this was done. And so you ended up getting characters like Riri Williams, the black woman who was briefly Iron Man. That and like it's the type of stuff that it's this weird culture war between two sides that do not acknowledge one another. Like on the side of the people making these comics, they're pretending that they're doing it, to be inclusive, and then on the part of the people complaining about it, they're acting as though it wasn't done to provoke the exact reaction they're giving. And it's just this weird Ouroboros of nonsense that makes comics an already hideously toxic space for women and Black Indigenous people of color. I never know. Sorry, aside. I never know how I'm supposed to say BIPOC. Do you just say BIPOC? Is that how you say it out loud? Can someone confirm this for me?
I don't know if I've ever not read it, or they would just say the whole thing, which is
I've definitely heard. Well, because to say Black Indigenous people of color to me seems to imply that people who are check all of those boxes, right? When you write it, you can put in commas that make your intention more clear. But anyway, that's beside the point. It is entirely people. It is like patently pathetic because it just is. It will gain no ground.
Yeah,
that's my view on Comicsgate.
So it sounds like, while there might be some people who are going to whine about it, there's like none of the comic producers are going to get on board with it.
There's always a few, right? Like there's a few like token comic producers, and then they'll inevitably do something that gets them fired from a major comics company and start their own little label where they do unwoke comics, where it's just these dog shit, poorly drawn, uh, self-published comics that sell a couple issues. Like there's a cycle of this. Like like if you remember those Sarah Palin comics when that campaign was happening, like it's the same shit.
Huh.
Like
Well,
comic fans in general hate it when things change. So I can see like the logic of going, oh well, this is an easy thing to tap into. Is like we tap into their fear of change, and we weaponize that like to make them more sexist and racist. Like is the idea, right? But I think where it kind of falls apart is so few people give a shit about comic books. Like people care about Marvel movies, but the no one, aside from like a few man babies, myself being one, give a shit about the comics. So it doesn't have the same power that like a Gamergate would have because video games are huge. It's an entire medium,
Yep. It is by sheer like money exchanging hands the largest entertainment industry in the world now.
Yes. And comics have been dying for as long as I've been alive.
Yeah. I'm guessing that they thought that the movies were going to give them a good shot in the arm, but I imagine that has not happened. So now it's just the reference material for movies.
Pretty much, yeah.
Which I think we can use to pivot into one of my favorite lesser known facts about Matthew Thoughtslime. And that is that you have a giant love for the CW DC TV shows. I think you once said that they're not good, but they were made specifically for me.
Yes, because it's like people complain like, "Oh, these shows are a soap opera," and I'm like, "Yeah, they are. Yeah,
Always has been.
I want to see what my friend the Flash is gonna do when the gorilla gets mad at him."
And
I feel bad because I shouldn't be watching Superman and Lois because they essentially fired one of the writers who is a black woman because she voiced concern that like the writing staff wasn't diverse enough and they fired her for it. So I should not be watching the show, and I acknowledge that. But there were several times during the show that it almost brought me to tears, the Superman and Lois. Like just the idea of Superman being a dad and like just trying to live his life. It's a great show.
and
Nobody should pay money to watch.
I'm trying to think about which ones are actually on the air these days. I tried to get into Green Arrow for a while, or just Arrow. Although that show, they were like, oh, they try to make the weird transition from grimdark to fun comics, and that was quite a weird transition of it.
Yeah, it fully embraced comic bullshit by the end. Like the way that Arrow ends, spoiler for those of you who aren't caught up on Arrow, is Oliver Queen dies in the Crisis on Infinite Earths and becomes the Spectre, who is like the DC Comics God's messenger of vengeance, like the spirit of vengeance that like punishes wicked souls. Like this show that started off as like, we're going to do a grounded take on the Green Arrow character, and then by the end of it, it's like, oh yeah, him and Supergirl were fighting off parademons in the Crisis on Infinite Earths because the Anti-Monitor was going to get him, so he became the Spectre.
Oh God. Yeah, all I walked away for a few years, and then I just see like clips like a fight breaking out in a wax museum to the tune of the Thong Song by Cisco, where they're fighting a bunch of people in like old historical clothing, and I'm just like,
Or
okay,
the famous gorilla walking into a college dorm room and saying, "Barack Obama, I've come to kill you."
yes. And so I'm just like, oh, this show's doing something. This is going places. Ooh, okay. This is an interesting question that kind of goes into the thing. What do we think about WandaVision? And in general, it seems like the left's been very snobbish about it.
I will tell you, I literally watched all of it today, so this is a timely question for me. I like WandaVision. I like that it's trying to do something very different. In general, like I just find the idea of, and this is something comics are really good about, is because they're literally produced every month. You can do just a little story that doesn't have to have this enormous mass appeal. And WandaVision, it is so committed to its premise that I can see it being very alienating for some audiences. And it also, like in the way that a lot of Marvel movies don't, it requires you to know so much about these characters and what happened in previous movies. The barrier for entry seems super high to me. But I happen to have seen all of the movies, so I understand what's happening. Um, I have read some criticism that I think is like a little unfair, but in general, like I don't know, it's fun popcorn TV.
Yeah, I think that compared to like the rather risk averse Disney, typically it's more interesting than I was expecting. That's for
Hmm.
sure. I did like that. That I was like, okay, so they're going to make this. They have to make this new backstory for this character because I knew that there wasn't going to be some point where the door opens and Ian McKellen walks in and it's like, "Father, no."
No,
Okay.
I actually think they might do that in the last episode.
Do you think they're going to bring Ian McKellen?
I don't know if it'll be Ian McKellen, but I think probably what will happen is, if I had to make a guess, and if I were writing WandaVision and I wanted to like create the big social media, get everybody excited for Phase 4, uh, is you have some. It somehow it comes out that Wanda discovers she was adopted by the parents that got exploded by the Stark Industries bomb, and she's looking into who her real parents are, and she gets a note that just says the name Magnus, and then just get everybody hype. That because Marvel just got the rights back to the X-Men, and we know that they want to introduce them into the MCU, and I think that would be a smart way to do it.
Yeah, because I was thinking about how whenever I think about like WandaVision, when I was watching WandaVision the whole time, I'm like, this is just funny how they had to like make this characters is just like when they decided to do Avengers 2, they were like, all right, we're going to do Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver, but for legal reasons, we can't call them those things. So they just are going to be unnicknamed superheroes that do things similar to, like, they were like, what's it called? The, like kind of like the cheap knockoff brand version of these superheroes from other comics. And then I thought, and I was just like, oh man. And then at the end of the last episode, they say Scarlet Witch, and I Kelly and I both imitated the meme with Leonardo DiCaprio, where he's just pointing at the TV, like they said the thing.
It's. I also loved that they brought in the guy who played Quicksilver in the X-Men movies to play Quicksilver.
Oh, I didn't know
That was
that.
such a good bit. Yeah, so you know how they keep saying like she recast Pietro. Well, that was the guy in like the like X-Men Origins, or not X-Men Origins, but like First Class and Days of Future Past and all those. He played Quicksilver.
I did not know that. That's awesome. Yeah. The other thing too, I'm wondering though, because like the thing is, so much of like if they're gonna do it, it's gonna have to be really different because like every time I think of X-Men, like X-Men's such a product of the 1970s.
Hmm.
Like the main conflict is a sort of like liberals interpretation of the Malcolm X versus Martin Luther King debate. And like the main villain is a Holocaust survivor, and like it's a super important part of his backstory, and like Um, you've got like a very heavy-handed civil rights metaphor, and I'm like, how are they going to do this when like, Elizabeth Olsen was born in 1989. You couldn't have somebody who's a Holocaust survivor really be your father realistically.
I mean, the comics have gotten around this in various ways, but like, you just add in something about like if it were me, again, if I were writing this, there's a mutant with the power to delay aging, and that mutant works for Magneto.
All right, fair. I would love if they can get back the best X-Men character and get the actor who played who I found out is the character actor, or whatever you call it, the physical actor who played Darth Maul.
Ray Park, who played Toad.
Yes, who was the highlight of the X-Men movie.
Yeah, I mean, what happens to a frog when they get struck by lightning?
Same thing that happens to everybody else. When I found out that was the same guy, I lost it as a kid. Because, of course, as a person who was 10 when what's it called when the movie came out? When the Phantom Menace came out? Obviously, it was the best thing I'd ever seen. And I think X-Men came out around the same time.
By the way, you know why that line in X-Men falls so flat? That the same thing that happens to everyone else? Is it was a last-minute rewrite. Is the original line was, they croak.
That's a good one. Why'd they get rid of that?
It's a much better joke, but they were like, oh no, that's not cool enough.
Yeah, man. It's gonna be weird when they try to integrate that in, because like the other thing about mutants too is like there's sort of the whole thing about how they've been around for a while and everybody knows who they are, and they're like an actual like. So like they're just gonna be like, hey, it's the Marvel universe. By the way, these people have always been around. We just never thought about bringing it up ever.
I mean, again, like X-Men has always existed in the near future. Like that's I believe that was explicit in the first X-Men movie. They said sometime in the near future, like in a little title card or something. But you could have it like, people are discovering that there's more mutants now, and then they discover that there always had been, or that there were, but they were kept secret by like the Hellfire Club or something like that. Like all of that, none of that shit matters. But what I think does kind of cheapen the X-Men a little, and this is a problem that I think they've just always had in the larger Marvel universe. It's kind of just a problem of having a large superhero universe, is that if we are meant to believe that the mutants with superpowers are hated and persecuted for being mutants, why then do people like revere the Avengers? You know?
Yeah. Another thing that came up when kind of talking about this WandaVision thing is there's one person who seems to be following this show a lot closer than I am, who thinks that all of the secrety stuff about like trying to steal the technology from Vision is Sentinels happening at some point.
Oh, I can see that.
If they're trying to get that all together.
What's the evidence? There's one of those I didn't get where they were like Lagos. I'm like, that's something. I know it's something. I just don't know.
I don't exactly know the thing into it, except that they're trying to weaponize a bunch of robots. And when the government weaponizes a bunch of robots in Marvel, that means they're doing Sentinels. And especially because they're centering a show around an ostensibly X-Men character who might be the introduction to the X-Men. I don't know.
We'll see, I guess.
And especially because, like, I don't know how far they're going with it, but aren't they getting, don't they already have, what's his name, signed up to do Deadpool movies and stuff too already? And, like, they're ready to go.
Ryan Reynolds?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Deadpool's going to be doing his thing. You could just have the same Deadpool in the new world. It doesn't matter. But I don't know. I don't know, like, because I can't imagine how they're going to introduce the X-Men gracefully into that world. But
The only thing I could think
yeah,
of is they might be doing whatever happens when comic books write themselves into a corner, which is they make a new universe and then integrate that in, and they could be like, this is the universe where the mutants are, and they're treated like shit. Because like, there's that rumor that the next Spider-Man movie is gonna have Tobey Maguire in it.
oh, that's not a rumor. He's confirmed.
Oh, well then, I haven't been paying close attention.
Him and Andrew Garfield.
Oh damn. So they're obviously opening that can of worms.
Yeah, I mean, I just hope that they go into the Miles Morales world from Spider-Verse at some point.
That'd be pretty cool. I would like Miles Morales. He seems like a much more compelling Spider-Man than Peter Parker.
By the way, I looked it up, and it's because in the actual city of Lagos, Nigeria, the Avengers went on a mission that went badly, is all that is, which is very disappointing to me.
It wasn't that entire scene where the Hulk destroys a bunch of shit and they have to bring in the special Iron Man suit that's for fighting Hulks, and well, like that whole scene in that movie. I don't know. Avengers 2 was a very bad movie. And I don't remember very much of it.
Avengers 2 was right before they pivoted to like more comedy, and I think that's really when they got better, in my opinion.
Yeah. All right. Has Matt ever seen Powerpuff Girls X?
Is that the anime Powerpuff Girls? I haven't seen it, whatever it is.
All right, there's your answer. Okay. Let's see. Do you listen to? First of all, I actually haven't asked you this, and I feel like this is a thing that I'd be interested to know. Are you a person who listens to podcasts?
Me, yeah.
And what's on your regular rotation?
I used to listen to a lot more back when I had an office job, but nowadays it's mostly the Bim Bam, anything Robert Evans is on. What else? I think that's pretty much it these days, sadly. Sometimes they'll do like if a particular episode of something else. I have a lot of podcasts that friends are on. The Flophouse occasionally. The if he has a good guest on, sometimes the Duncan Trussell Family Hour.
Okay. I was thinking.
The Dead Meat podcast as well.
Knowledge Fight.
I couldn't get into Knowledge Fight. I feel like they've built up so many inside jokes at this point.
It's true. Someone just mentioned Welcome to Night Vale, and I would say the same thing for the same reason.
Well, I mean, I used to listen to a lot of Welcome to Night Vale, but I feel like at this point, I'm like, I got it. Thanks.
How did Matt listen to Sawbones for so long without overdosing on lib?
I guess like I haven't listened to Sawbone in a couple of years, but I didn't find it particularly troubling in that way.
I've never listened.
I'm sure they have some opinions that I wouldn't share, but I didn't really listen to it for politics. I listened to it for medicine, and I think I can unequivocally say that Sidney McElroy knows more about medicine than I do.
Mm-hmm. The other thing that's interesting in podcast here, we were talking about Robert Evans, and that's a common touchstone for a lot of people because my content overlaps with his a lot. I've had a couple videos where I had to be like, well, Robert Evans already did it, so I guess I gotta stop. Guess I can't do this one for a little while. But there's been some stuff, specifically like I have to look into the details of this, but Marxist-Leninist Twitter is very mad at him. They're convinced that he works for the CIA.
Good.
Apparently, this has something to do with Bellingcat being funded by a group that has links to the CIA. I don't know.
I mean, if that were true, then I think they need to consider how they spend their money a bit more appropriately. Because he does do a lot of talking about how fucked up the CIA is specifically.
Yeah. Honestly, I think this comes to the fact that he like points out, because like when you're like, I don't know, when you go down like a certain tanky hole, you get into like the point when you're starting to defend Bashar al-Assad and stuff like that. And it's like, and he's a big critic of Assad because he's actually been to Syria and seen the chaos of the Syrian civil war. And
we're not even getting into Bappers here tonight, but I think another reason that people say that Robert Evans is a state asset is because he did do some like training with some intelligence agency, specifically telling them like how to find and deal with white supremacist terror. Which like
sounds
he
terrible.
I'm not really like that mad about that, to be honest.
Yeah, what's it called? The law enforcement, like as I'm studying for this COINTELPRO series I've been working on, notoriously doesn't take white supremacist violence seriously. Like when there was like this massive leak of COINTELPRO documents, found out that like their efforts against left-wing groups versus their efforts against the KKK, which was the only right-wing group that they had any COINTELPRO programs about, skewed to the left 99-1. 1% of all of the leaked documents had anything to do with the Klan, and 99% of it was about some of the weirdest ones. I can't wait till this video comes out, because like there's so much, like how the first COINTELPRO program was set up to attack CPUSA, the oldest American Communist Party, in 1956 was when it came out, and like that was the year that Nikita Khrushchev was like, hey, Stalin did a bunch of bad shit, by the way, everybody. And then, like, a bunch of people, after that happened, a lot of, like, communists who were, like, super supportive of the Soviet Union were like, oh, shit, I did not know that Stalin did all of those bad things. We're finding this out for the first time because he died only a few years ago. And so support for communist causes started to wane pretty heavily in America that time, combined with, like, HUAC and the Red Scare and all that kind of stuff all also going on at the same time. So this is like the year where like this like CPUSA was like in its like one of its most dire conditions, and they were like, yeah, the FBI needs to be dedicating resources right now to taking out this threat to the state out. And it's like, okay.
I mean, it's not surprising that they wouldn't invest as much into policing the KKK, given like the 1-to-1 relationship between police departments and the KKK.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you want made the FBI eventually have to open up a intel program on the Klan?
What?
It was political pressure. Politicians were like, specifically when the Democrats started getting on board with the civil rights movement, and LBJ's government was like, during the Freedom Summer or whatever, they had the Klan murdered a whole bunch of civil rights activists, and they were like, oh, and it was like very visible, and so they're like, you might have to do something about this now.
There you go, identity politics distracting from class again.
Yeah. And they used it to be like, oh, so we don't have to just limit our investigations to people who are like part of an ideology that openly wants to overthrow the government. We can just expand it to anybody. And that's when they after that was like, oh, then we can do it against all the new left and the people who are saying that war is bad. More to come next week when Step Back History goes into how fucked up the FBI is. The answer, very fucked up. Um, so this is a question that came up. I don't know if like you want to get into some of the kind of darker stuff of your last week's video. So you can tell me to pass if you don't want to.
Okay.
But somebody was worried that your monologue might have been triggering for people with suicidal ideation.
So I did end up changing the title to say content warning suicidal ideation, and I also put content warning suicidal ideation in the thumbnail.
Fair. Okay. I don't know. That was just a question that came up yesterday, and someone brought it up again.
That feedback has been received.
It was a very, very real video. I would say it was really good, by the way.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Big response on that one.
You're hitting a milestone, and so I can imagine those kinds of things would come up. I'm somehow gonna hit 100,000 subscribers this year, and I don't know if I am ready to handle that emotionally.
Why not?
Just because, like, they're gonna send me a little metal play button at some point.
You think you're gonna get a play button, huh?
Yeah.
That's cute.
Have you not gotten yours yet?
You're not guaranteed to get it.
No?
They only offer it to certain channels that meet up to their editorial standards, and it's not like a thing you can apply for. They just message you and say like you can pick it up, or you can give us the address to send it to.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Well, shoot. Anyways, well then, crisis over, because it would have been the first award I've ever won, and so I was like, okay, guess I don't get.
Well, you still won the award. You're just not going to get the trophy.
Yeah, fair. I won trophy, and it is a participation trophy for T-ball when I was like 5 years old.
Hey, quit bragging.
Yeah. Oh, now here we go. Much better question. It was a good question. It was just this one is good. Who's your D&D character?
Oh, I have several D&D characters at this point. The two main ones. There's my boy Mink, the arcane trickster rogue, who is currently a little worm in hell. And the character I'm playing now is named Wilrinth Gale. He's a sorcerer and a con man and a dandy.
Slightly inspired by Saul Goodman, if I remember.
Yes, I was watching Better Call Saul at the time when I created that character.
Arcane Trickster. Yeah, we had a fun thing with Mink, and I can't wait to bring that back, which is that his spells as a rogue were he did not think that he could do spells, that he could do magic, so he just thought he had a bunch of magical items, but were actually just like random crap he carried on him that he thought cast spells. And so he had like, I just like rolled on like the random chart of like, there's a chart in one of the books that's like a random doodad you can have, and I just gave you a bunch of random doodads.
Well, I think originally the concept, we couldn't figure out a way to translate this into the D&D world, but the original idea was that all of his magic came from things that he ordered out of the back of comic books.
Oh yeah,
like how in a comic book, like it's like get 3D glasses, or sea monkeys, or the Charles Atlas strength program. So I thought like he would get just all of his magic items from that, and they would all by sheer coincidence actually work. But then it just became this, he has this innate magical ability that he doesn't believe that he has because he lacks confidence. So this huckster takes advantage of him by selling him useless garbage that he manifests as giving him all of his spells.
I remember that. That was good stuff. Um, have you gone through the new D&D Tash's book? It's a last ditch effort to make Wizards of the Coast make D&D less restrictive or racist. Yeah, there is that. So I don't know if you've seen this, but there's a new D&D book that came out about a month ago now. I've got it sitting on my shelf. But basically, it's like a bunch of new content. Hey, thank you for the raid, Any Streams. So it basically is like, we're going to redo all of the races in the game now and basically be like, now your stats are not really tied to your race anymore. And they're trying to get rid of like they got like none of the negative stats are around anymore because of there was like a couple years ago there was Orc Gate, if you remember that.
I remember Orc Gate, yes.
And so they're trying to make it now so that the race essentialism of the D&D books is being challenged, which is good. I think most of the other like RPG games like this have pretty much done away with like the species you are having a like actual effect stats wise. And I mean, it speaks to the fact that D&D as a game is one of those things where like the modern design that people have been doing to make games more fun and interesting is always being weighed down by the legacy of the mechanics from the old editions that they know people will get mad if they take them out or change them. And so they try to they have to balance that, and it always ends up weird and strange.
Well, I think one thing they could do is they could make it explicit in all the books that you can't make white characters.
Fair.
Like if in the first page of the player's manual there was a note from the editor, and it said, "In every D&D world, there are no white people." I think that would help.
Yeah. I don't know how to follow that up. I don't know how to yes and.
And if one of your players attempts to create a white character, a piano instantly falls on them, killing them immediately.
Gamers are mad. Oh man, yeah, because there was an attempt to make an RPG like Gamergate as well, if I remember correctly, about people getting mad about. There was a thing where they tried to make a thing where they're now making so that elves are a little bit more gender fluid, like that's sort of like a thing about them. Mm-hmm. Specifically,
like as everyone had played elves for years anyway.
Yeah, and then in one of the books they made an elf subrace that can change their change their physical sexual characteristics basically whenever they long rest. I think you were going to play one, and Eladrin was originally what Willie's was going to be, and that's what they can do. And then that gamers were mad about that one. So, white character automatically awakens the Tarrasque. I need to save that one for you.
You know, I was thinking about this recently, and what like a nonsense logical like quagmire it is. The people that want to enforce strict gender roles believe that they must enforce strict gender roles because those roles are natural and like self-creating. They believe that in order to preserve the natural way of things, the emergent quality of gender roles, that they have to like set really strict rules. But it seems to me that if those qualities were actually natural and emergent, you wouldn't have to control for them. They would just happen automatically.
Yeah. And they try to enforce it on things like potatoes these days, which have both sets of genitals. So I don't know.
Yeah, let me tell you, I don't want to live in a world where I have to explain to my son that Mr. Potato Head doesn't have a giant swinging hog.
They got the hole there for a reason. Okay. So you can plug the hog in. Okay. So thank you, April, by the way, for the super chat. And someone said favorite retro games that aren't Castlevania SOTN.
Why would you assume that's? First of all, that's not a retro game to me. I'm old. How do we define a retro game? Like something we played as kids, or something that was out before, like we played video games?
I imagine something that like maybe like a game that you wouldn't play if it came out today, but like you have good memories because you played it when you were younger, and video games were different back then.
It's like every video game on the NES or SNES. So,
Yeah,
my favorite of those is Chrono Trigger.
I really wish I'd played that one. That's like what's it called? I don't really have many regrets about never having a Nintendo as a kid, but not playing Chrono Trigger is up there. For me, I would say, I mean, what comes to mind is Final Fantasy VII, because I remember I digged a lot of hours into that game. Because they didn't have, well, I mean, they did have, but I didn't go on the internet to look up text walkthroughs. So,
Have you tried the remake?
no, I do not have a PlayStation.
Oh yeah, it's PlayStation exclusive. That makes sense.
Yeah, I don't.
I would say you can still play Chrono Trigger. Like that game is still fun to play. It is so well designed that it holds up to this day.
Yeah, I'll probably dig it up sometime. For me, retro games, like, because I didn't have consoles when I was a kid, typically are like, to me, like Diablo, like the old Diablo game. That one comes to mind as a lot. Probably a game I shouldn't have played as a kid. There was a lot of a lot of things that a kid should not have touched in that, but whatever.
Well, like all games, this is something I miss about like early PC gaming, is that all games were horribly violent, but also not rendered well enough that it would be traumatizing.
Yeah.
So like you would play like Quake and you would be exploding people and turning them into little chunks of meat, you know?
Mm-hmm. Hey, Kamaz Alter, thank you for rating. Much appreciated. Yeah, like another game that comes to mind that I played a lot when I was a little kid was Fallout. And Fallout was also a pretty gory game. And probably something that I was probably, like, the thing is, like, Diablo, like, what's it called? It's violent, but it's very pixelated and everything. I was probably like 6 when I was playing Diablo. And I mean, like, maybe 6-year-olds shouldn't play Diablo. I don't mean to be like, authoritarian parent or anything like that, but that game literally has like people impaled on spikes with their guts hanging out. And it's like, okay, maybe keep the first grader from that one. But
I played a lot of Duke Nukem 3D when I was like 10. And that game is pretty inappropriate for kids.
That's true. Yeah, I remember because the way that it worked is my dad had a laptop for work, and he would bring it home, and we would install the game because it would be on like 15 floppy disk drives. And then I'd get to play it in the night, but then we had to uninstall it because he couldn't have any games on his computer for work. So he had to uninstall it before he went to work the next day. And then he'd come home and we'd have to install it again. So I couldn't have any saved games or anything like that.
Well, I guess you were 6, so you wouldn't have thought of it, but you could have just taken the save file and put that on a floppy disk or something.
Yeah. And also, when I was a kid, my Gen X cousin used to live at our house. And so he also, like, I think I saw, like Evil Dead when I was, like, 8 and fucking traumatized me.
It's a great movie. Which Evil Dead? Was it the one or 2?
The first one. The one that was not setting up a sequel, so the one that was not a remake of the first one.
Well, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, and that's probably the the one that would be scariest to a kid because it's the most sincere.
Yeah. Next up we got here is a question: do either of you play any TTRPG system other than D&D? And the answer is yes. You run
what is
you run a once a month game.
I always forget the
Recess.
Recess. Yeah, it's called Spooky Town. It is a magical realist version of real life where everyone plays themselves, and the characters are exploring the underground secret magical society in Toronto, guided by me, a slightly menacing necromancer.
Who lives in a coffee time.
Well, no, I mean, you're simplifying things extraordinarily. I live in the plane of sorrow, and the only way to enter that is to go into a coffee time.
Yeah. It's very good, and it's very funny, and I enjoyed it immensely. I also play Ironsworn, which is a role-playing game that is free, and it is designed to be played. You can either play it with a GM or without a GM, and you can even play it solo because it's got a bunch of stuff for like determining what happens and stuff. And I also use it quite a bit behind the scenes when I'm running games because it is a lot of like, you know, you fail, here are some things that you like, here are some consequences that it could be of that, and like has a bunch of like oracle charts which are like for inspiring you about what happens next, and it's more improv-y and it's more based on prompts and stuff, and I'm like, oh yeah, I love it.
Have you ever played AI Dungeon?
I have tried to play AI Dungeon. It's one of those games where it's like, this is interesting and it could be a lot better, but then they're like, give me money, and I'm like, I don't know if I want to give somebody money to...
I never want to give people money.
No.
Except at patreon.com/stepbackhistory.
Oh man, hopping over there. I did find out that if you get the annual subscription model to my Patreon, because of the 16% discount, if you pledge at $5 a month, you're paying technically $4.20 a month.
Nice. Sex number.
Oh, have you ever played Masks: A New Generation? That is a game that you would have a lot of fun with.
No.
It's a like superhero RPG, but it's like teenage superhero RPG. And so like it has a lot of stuff where like a lot of like teenager issues are part of the mechanics of the game. Like the negative status effects that you take instead of like physical damage can be things like your self-esteem being shot, or you're like you're not able to control your anger or stuff like that. And like working through that issue, like having like a moment where you guys take care of each other can like help you like build your confidence and get you back, like get you out of the status effect and stuff like that. Shannon Strucci's podcast, RPG podcast, is played in that system.
Okay. I can see that being fun.
I've seen it being played. I've never played it myself. But it's based on the Apocalypse system, which I enjoy immensely. All right, let's see. What do we got? Okay, so I was listening to Even More News, the podcast that goes with some more news, a few days ago. Cody was talking about Joss Whedon. Oh boy. Anybody? I was holding out for that Firefly reboot, but I don't think we're gonna get it anymore. Anybody?
Probably not. No.
Joss Whedon and the guest point out that a lot of famous directors from history, like Hitchcock and Kubrick, were kind of assholes in the same way Whedon seems to be. Makes me wonder if they made it so that to be a filmmaker, you can't be a filmmaker if you're a toxic shit. It might result in some really good movies never being made.
Good. Okay, fine. To counter that, I would say, how many great movies have not been made in the past by people who were forced out of the industry by the toxic behavior of such auteurs. You know, how many great movies would have been directed by women if they hadn't been chased out of the industry, or people of color? You know, it's not the idea that like genius is this do whatever you want pass. I think is a very toxic attitude, and like fucking Joss Whedon is not a genius. Joss Whedon, his like contribution to cinema is that he realized it was fun if characters make jokes. Like that is what he brought to the table. The idea that like he and he alone is responsible for Buffy the Vampire Slayer or Angel or Firefly. Like thousands of talented people worked on all of those programs. You know, all of the actors, some of whom deliberately left the show because of his toxic attitudes, making the show worse. Like he, you know, the costume designers, the musicians, the script writers, you know, like it's, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it could be. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I know there are some people who are really attached to Buffy. I never watched it, but like, yeah, it seems like as far as I know from what's going on behind the scenes, or what's going on from all these revelations, is that it seems like, yeah, he made it a shitty place to work, and now, like, no one's gonna, like, I wouldn't be able to watch it without thinking about all the pain that went into making it, and how much it's just like, can we just like stop worshiping directors, please? Like,
yeah, and I think we should also get rid of the idea of a director as a film's creator, as the person that made that movie, you know?
Yeah.
Like I think a director might be better understood as the head of a team of people that make a movie.
Yeah. It's like it's sort of like how we almost have baked into us this kind of thing, because like it's like the idea that we just have this assumption that countries have to have a leader, that there just has to be like a dude who is the face of the country, and it's like, yo, why? Okay, thank you, April, for the super chat, by the way. Look at how few stories we see on film and how many millions of books are written.
What?
Think about how few stories you see on film and how many millions of books are written. I'm guessing it's talking about how like it's like a huge amount of effort to make these shows.
I guess. I mean, I think it's also a pretty big effort to write a book.
That's true. But I guess like as far as like money wise.
And a single person can write a book.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man. As somebody, I actually really liked Firefly, and this makes me this made me like I knew that there was like stuff about Joss being shitty a few years ago. But there was like, I think there was like almost like a flickering of the idea that they were going to sans Joss Whedon bring Firefly back, and then it's like, nope, this killed it. But I'm glad that years of abuse can be exposed, because no matter what, I feel like that's a more important thing than, you know, all of the good TV shows and movies in the world, is not having people have an absolutely miserable time at work. It's like how people will defend shit like how like if a movie is like not historically accurate because they hire a diverse cast, and it's like, movies are also a job, and people like having this like emphasis on historical fiction, which also is very whitewashed for reasons, means that it makes it like actively harder for people of color to get work, and for women to get work. And to me, it's like, it's more important that the industry is a fair place where people can have a good job than to make sure that the movies are like laser accurate. And
By the way, have you ever heard the theory that Beethoven was black?
I have. I don't know much about it. It's a thing I've heard of, but not much about.
There is a surprising amount of evidence for this.
Damn.
I remember people were telling me, like, oh yeah, you should look into it. And I'm like, there's no way you're going to convince me that Beethoven was black. It just feels like such a big reach that, like, this historical figure that we all know what he looks like. We've all seen paintings of him. And then you look into it, I'm like, oh, actually, kind of, maybe.
Yeah, it's like when I mean, it's maybe probably not the same, but whenever I hear about like this, is how I've been in quarantine too long because UFO stuff is starting to make more sense to me now, and I'm like, that's not good. But like, I was like, you're not going to be able to convince me that that asteroid that passed through our solar system a few years ago was a probe or something. And then I'm like, oh wait, no, there's like a lot of people asking questions about this thing, and I'm like, oh no, what did I do?
Is that the one that was like the really smooth shape?
Yeah, and it was really strangely shaped. Like it was sort of like this like long tubular shape that that people think like if it was natural, it wouldn't have been able to stay that shape for very long. Like it would be a sphere, and so
I feel like it's one of those things where, because I saw a video about this where an astrologist, not an astrologist, like an astronomer rather, went over it, went over the case for it. But he did that thing that I hate in a video essay where they take the wrong position and convince you that it's true. And then halfway through, they go, okay, now here's why everything I just said is wrong. Like, congrats. You made me feel like an idiot. Great job.
yeah, that happens a lot when they cover like pseudoscience and pseudo history and stuff because the pseudo story is more compelling, so it keeps you around through the commercials. But then they also have to be like, well, we can't just like lie to you, so we're gonna like tell this more compelling story and then be like, psych, nope. Oh, this is another thing. The new Just Right video came out the other day about Attack on Titan having some serious issues with like being associated with like some like Japanese nationalist overtones and some sort of clumsy metaphors about specifically Jewish people. Do you know anything about this or?
Well, here's the thing: is all of that may or may not be true, but what people forget about an Attack on Titan is it's awful to watch. It's a slideshow. It's not a cartoon. They put in a bunch of keyframes and then forgot to animate it. So,
Oh dear.
I made it one episode in. I was like, oh, completely fuck this.
I watched several episodes of it, and it comes with like this is a thing that comes up in anime a lot. I don't know why. I don't know. Like I mean, yeah, I don't know why, but like the show obviously sold itself around like, oh, look at this like high wire fighting with knives thing, right? Like we're gonna shoot around with our grappling hooks and stuff, and it's all pneumatic and it's really cool. And that's like the gimmick of the show is like these action scenes with like these grappling hooks and stuff. And I was like, okay, that's a cool concept, I guess. Let's go with this for a while. And then there's this scene where they're like out of the city and there's no buildings around, and so it's like, and they're getting chased down by one of these toddlers that wants to eat them, and there's nothing around. They're like in the middle of a prairie on horseback, and so it's like, oh, this might be interesting. This is going to be like what happened to like watching Spider-Man fight in Saskatchewan or something. Like it might be just like this fun. They're constrained, so they have to do something new, and they're like, quick, let's veer into that forest. And then he just like looks over in the edge, and there's this like the hugest redwood forest you've ever seen. And it was just like, just so that they can contrive having a thing so they can have their fight in. And it was like these shows like build themselves around like having a gimmick, and then nothing can deviate from the gimmick.
I will say though that I've been playing a lot of the video game Blade and Sorcery, which is a VR melee game, and there's a mod that lets you fight titans, and that's really fun.
Yeah. I know you're having a lot of fun in VR. You're basically like, the other day you were like, I basically live in the virtual world now.
Yeah, I don't live in meat space anymore.
Worlds within worlds. You honestly think living in a world without 2001 or the birds is worth having a world without sexual harassment? Yup.
Yes. Next question.
Next question. Someone's been watching the History Channel again. Yeah, that thing would. Okay, let's see. Okay, somebody was like, please tell me when to come back to the stream when the Attack on Titan spoilers are out of the way.
Yeah, yeah. But, you don't have to worry about spoilers.
Oh, that was sarcasm, that line. Okay. Should we get... Okay, so this is a... Okay. Should we get rid of things like jokes or songs that are built around the idea that hurting animals is fun or funny? Earlier today, someone on Discord said it was, quote, cancel culture to get rid of the sea shanties that are about whaling. But if whales are like sapient creatures that we should respect, it doesn't seem unreasonable to me to say that we shouldn't sing about killing them. I mean, I'm sure there were folk songs about lynching back in the day.
Okay, well, like, I don't think you were necessarily meant to imply this, but those two things are not equivalent. To get that out of the way. But I think it really depends on what you mean by get rid of. If you mean stop singing, like, yeah, you could make a case for that. If you mean erase from public memory, I don't know about that one, Chief.
Yeah, because like right now, one of the weirder things is that there's like a top charting song called "The Weller Man," which is a sea shanty about whaling, and
no, it's about waiting to get coffee and tea and rum, as I understand it.
Yeah, it does have associations with whaling, though, but the work of whaling.
Okay, but like, let me ask you this though, to the people that would be like, I think we should get rid of this song. Do you think anyone hearing it is going to be inspired to commit a whale hate crime? Like, you know, like...
Yeah. It's like, it's a thing that's illegal now. And like...
Yeah.
It's not like... If you wanted to get... If you're like, man, I hate whales so fucking much because of this song, I want to go and kill one right now. Like, you need like a boat and like a harpoon and shit. Or you need to either move to Norway or Japan to do it legally. Otherwise, the whale would win. Just saying.
Yeah, I mean, if there's one thing I learned from Moby Dick is if you start shit with a whale, it's not going to go well for you.
Yeah. You're also from the Atlantic coast, and so you're from even when they die, they sometimes will fuck you up because they just explode randomly when they wash up on shore.
I mean, of the problems I think we're causing for whales, I don't think sea shanties even make it into the top 100. You know?
Yeah, fair. And also and no, we're not hating on the fact that the Inuit do practice whaling as a part of their traditional hunting culture.
No, if anything, we're showing our respect for the Inuit because we know how hard it is to kill a whale.
Mm-hmm.
They must be very powerful.
Yeah, these days, I'm not sure if this is one of the things they do these days to hunt whales is they, long time ago, they bought a bunch of surplus World War II anti-aircraft guns and somehow use those to hunt whales now. It's okay.
Whales could fly at the time.
Flak cannons, okay. Interesting. Let's see. I think it contributes to the idea that whales are lesser beings, even if it might not inspire direct violence.
But again, I would ask, the way that this question was framed was that comparing it to racist songs or a song from before the Civil War about lynching people, you know? That's if we take that as our signpost of the type of thing that must be for lack of a better word, canceled. What harm is whaling causing? You know, like who is hurt by it and how are they hurt by it?
Yeah.
Because like whales aren't listening to it. Like you're not like doing a microaggression on a whale because the whale doesn't give a shit. The whale can't understand the song. So like if you're worried that people are going to hear that song and think whale lives are less important than human lives, that ship is fucking sailed. Like I think there's almost nothing you could do to convince people otherwise.
Yeah, and like making a comparison to like the brutal history of lynching and whaling is an equivalence that I'm not comfortable making.
No, I mean like it is it's such a non-issue that like I think it almost feels like a gotcha thing. Like, oh, you're against this other extreme manifestation of this, but technically, if you follow that logic, you should be against this very normal thing, you know?
Mm-hmm. And like, you know, we don't know that many
facts. And I would ask, like,
yeah, go ahead.
Like, the people that say this, like, I should hope you're fucking full vegan if you're getting mad about the whale song.
And you're not eating figs.
Yeah? You better not be eating figs.
Yeah, I don't have. I will admit, like my animal rights theory is not exactly up to date. But I still, yeah, I think like let's not do the fucking like what was it? What was it? PETA that did the thing where they try to compare the slaughter of chickens to the Holocaust. It's like, no, don't do that. Stop.
Oh, man. I made fun of that in a video recently, and I am getting so many messages from a lot of very white vegans.
Mm-hmm. What's wrong with figs? Just that they're not technically vegan because in order to like basically pollinate the flower to turn into a fig, you have to kill a wasp. And a wasp is technically like trapped and digested by the thing that turns into the fig. So you're technically eating a little bit of wasp when you're eating a fig. Very technically. It's like for anybody who like it's a certain everybody's like freaking out they didn't know that. Yeah, it's one of the more horrific things about figs that you learn later, but figs are in order to pollinate.
One of?
I don't know any other fucked up facts about figs, but yeah, that is like that is a thing about figs, and so to some people, that's considered that makes them not vegan if like you wouldn't eat a predatory plant, I guess.
Mm.
But you do occasionally find wasps in figs that weren't digested. Very rarely these days, but they're not really carnivorous. They don't really eat the fig. They eat the wasp. They trap it to use it to pollinate or something. It's like how mosquitoes don't technically eat blood. They use it to fertilize their eggs somehow. But either way, it is a thing about figs. I don't know. I haven't talked to Vegan Command to know where they come down on this, but my guess is that there are some people who now don't eat figs, and that there are people who might have thought about it a little bit more than that.
I was looking for an excuse not to eat figs anyway. I don't like them.
Yeah, fair. That's the other thing. Like, I'm wondering where that stands on like plant, because like there's a very small amount of like, I don't know, is it vegan to eat a Venus flytrap?
Is it vegan to eat Audrey too?
What's that?
That's the monster from Little Shop of Horrors.
Oh, okay. This is a very rare occasion when plants eat animals, but And also, I feel like this is like a pointless conversation or pointless
Well,
discussion.
let me ask you this: the average person eats 8 spiders a year in their sleep. Is that vegan?
Uh, I don't know. I don't know what to say.
You think about it, you never know what matter at some point constituted the body of an animal. And in this way, as we return to the earth, and we all are one being, so nothing is vegan, but also everything is vegan.
There you go. Coming right around. Uh, Actually, I'd be this a discussion that's come up a couple times on my streams, and I'd be interested to see the vegan perspective. Is
Mhm.
that we're talking about these like making meat in breweries and stuff like that, and that's starting to roll out. It's rolled out in Singapore and Israel so far. Is that a thing that that you would abstain from, or is that a thing that you might consider?
I mean, as long as there's no actual like animal harmed, I don't see a reason not to eat it. But at the same time, it does feel like it's solving a problem that doesn't need to be solved.
Yeah,
Because like I don't think it's ever going to become less expensive than just growing an animal and torturing it. So if your goal is just to create slightly more expensive meat that is less cruel, I don't think that's going to work. I don't think it's going to get like people to stop eating real meat.
yeah. Well, the idea behind it is that, and this is the kind of place it's going to, is that it is, if they can get it to work the way that they want it to, because they can do it. Basically, if, some people haven't heard of it. It's basically they take like cow muscle cells and cultivate them in a brewery, and so they just grow the meat. Right now, they can make like an almost passable ground beef, and they're now there's like a company that's doing steaks in Israel now. So it's getting more sophisticated, but the idea behind it is that it's going to be able to make animal protein much more resource efficiently than like livestock, because livestock take up a lot of space, they waste a lot of resources, they create a lot of CO2, and this would and especially they use a lot of fresh water. And so if you see it from that perspective, like if they can get it so that it tastes the same or close enough, that they can get the price point down quite a bit. It's a technology that's very rapidly advancing right now. But yeah,
Okay.
but if it comes to that point, like yeah, although the fact is, like if you haven't eaten meat for a long time, it starts to make you sick if you ever try it, if you ever accidentally eat it again. So
Yeah. I mean, the few times that I've accidentally eaten it, I've never gotten sick.
more that's more dairy, right? Like if you accidentally take dairy, that'll make you sick.
No,
No?
it hasn't really affected me. I mean, like this has happened maybe a handful of times in 6 years. Uh, like I got a pizza the other day that they accidentally put real cheese on, and I ate that, and I didn't get
Step
sick
the
from
two
that.
nice.
I was in an airport and I couldn't. There was literally nothing for me to eat, so I had a cheese sandwich, and that didn't make me sick.
All right.
Um,
Good stuff. I congratulations. By the way, thank you for the subscription, Any Streams. Yeah, I would go into another question, but actually, we are just about at time. So, I think if you've got, well, the last thing. Do you have anything that you want to plug or tell everybody where to find all of your content?
in lieu of plugging my own shit, I will say this was brought to my attention by Mexi the other day, but there is a local Toronto activist that is being charged with CERB fraud or
Chirp.
taking CERB when they didn't technically lose their job because of COVID, but they were disabled and needed the support anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And so they have a GoFundMe to help that. Is it okay if I post it in the chat?
Yeah, I'll make sure I think Birdie's in the chat, so they can get you through. Otherwise, I will put the link. It's the GoFundMe from the DM, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll put that in the chat. So here's where you can contribute to that. And I'm also thinking that it would be really good. Well, this is one of my bigger audiences. We've got 75 people in Twitch. Maybe we should go raid our mutual friend Dimitri.
Okay.
Let's just send him a whole bunch of lefties while he plays video games. So this is a friend of ours. He's he's like one of the nicest human beings ever. Knows so much about computers. Great guy, friendliest person ever. Highly recommend, 10 out of 10. And we're gonna go and send you his way because he's still starting out, and I really want to help him out if I can. So we'll go there. But other than that, subscribe to Thought Slime, subscribe to Step Back. Take care of yourselves and each other, and I'll see you guys on Friday. Take care.
Bye.